to the World Massage Conference.
Hello and welcome. I'm Melanie Hayden. I will be the host for this class with Sharon Desjarlais, and she is going to be talking today about how to empower your practice and your life. If you're joining us for the live class, remember to jump into the chat room located just to the right of the broadcast screen and take advantage of the opportunity to ask Sharon any questions during the live event and sharing your feedback with the other therapists from around the globe. Sharon will get to as many of your questions as possible during the live classes, and she's also going to give us some information where we can contact her just in case you have some more questions afterwards. Just before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our global sponsor, Massage Envy. Massage Envy is a community of caregivers committed to helping people feel their best. They believe that therapeutic massage and customized skincare are an integral part of the well-being journey. If you share this belief, they'd like to get to know you better. Learn more at massageenvy.com/careers. And thank you to our education partner, Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals, provides an extensive array of member benefits and exceptional liability insurance. Visit abmp.com to discover why over 80,000 massage and bodywork professionals have chosen ABMP as their professional association. Thank you to our daily sponsors, Massage and Bodywork Magazine, Bon Vital, BioFreeze, and Massage Warehouse. How to empower your practice and your life. Is your practice growing by baby steps or maybe even dwindling? That's a good sign it's time for a healthy dose of energy and passion. Fortunately, life gives us natural reset points to select inspiring new goals. But if you think they follow the cycles of nature, think again. Here, you'll learn the secret marketing experts have known for ages. How to use the seasons, human nature, to re-empower your practice so you can fill your innermost calling as a successful and generous therapist. I'd like to introduce our world-class instructor. Sharon Desjarlais is a master certified award-winning coach for therapists who want to grow their practices into the fullest expression of their spirit. Since 1994, she has helped some of the world's leading modality developers expand their businesses, including Dr. John Upledger, Dr. Bruno Chickley, Paul Schaefer, Paul St. John, and Jean-Pierre Barral, and Suzanne Skurlock-Durana. Internationally recognized for teaching therapists how to package, price, and promote their services with integrity and ease, Sharon has authored hundreds of articles on light touch therapy and practice building. She also co-authored several books, including Modalities for Massage and Bodywork, and Complementary and Alternative Medicine and Rehabilitation. She is a featured columnist in Massage Today magazine. Welcome, Sharon, to the World Massage Conference. We always love to have you here because you do have the amazing ability to really help therapists learn to grow their business and their practice and do it with such integrity.
Ah, that's so sweet. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. So, shall we dive in?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So if you are looking for a template that gives you guidelines on how to grow your practice with grace and ease, look no further than Mother Nature, but only if you're a squirrel. You see, in the same way that Mother Nature draws us into the cyclical, seasonal patterns that we share with all of nature, it is actually human nature that draws us into cyclical patterns that can predict future behavior, both ours and those of our clients. Those patterns arose from the conditioning our societies and our cultures have had on us for generations, so long that they have become lodged in our collective unconscious, where they affect us without our even being aware. Now that's why when you understand the seasons of human nature, which I also call the social seasons, you're able to grow your practice in a way that meet your clients where they are with solutions that address their needs exactly when they need them. It's as if you're fulfilling an unconscious agreement with those people you were born to serve. And when you do that, that's also when you fulfill your highest purpose as a successful, generous practitioner. So in today's class, you're going to learn how to use the seasons of human nature to re-empower your practice and breathe new life into your business. You're also going to discover what I call the ease method of manifesting your most inspired desires in your practice and in your life. There really is a way to make achieving your business goals easier than ever before. And as you're going to see, the big goals you set for your practice also have an enormous impact on every other corner of your life. Now, you're also going to learn which 3 social seasons make reaching your goals as easy as floating downstream. And most importantly, you're going to discover how to get rid of those annoying voices in your head that are telling you you're not good enough, because nothing is further from the truth. And this is critical because, honestly, it's not knowing how to grow your practice that stops most people, right? The how is the easy part. It's getting past all those inner conflicts and the lack of confidence that disempowers us. And that's why we're going to address this issue right out of the gate. Now, as a bonus, you're going to find out the 2 best months to raise your rates and roll out new packages and programs. And as you're going to see, there really is a social science to this. Plus, you're also going to discover how to tell when your next step is the right one, especially if you're confused or overwhelmed. And that in and of itself is worth the price of admission. Now, before we dive in, I want to remind you to either grab the handout that you may have gotten with this webinar or grab a pen and some paper, because you're definitely going to want to take notes as we stroll through each step of the ease method of manifesting your most inspired desires, because this is an experiential process. Growth happens by getting involved. Now, the good news is what you'll take away today are the tools that make re-empowering your practice and your life a lot easier and a whole lot more fun. So let's talk about why it's important to line your growth with the seasons of human nature. By refreshing your business goals at the start of each social season, what you create in your practice is much more likely to match what your clients are naturally gravitating toward at that particular time of the year. Now, as I mentioned earlier, societies have their own rhythm that essentially train us to respond in certain ways at certain times. And when you understand what that rhythm is in your world, you can plan your goals so they naturally meet your clients where they are. Now, you can skip this step, of course, but if you do, you're always going to feel like you're swimming against the current, which means even things that should be easy to implement will take 3 times longer than they feel like they should, and they'll also feel twice as hard, right? Plus, you'll miss opportunities to engage clients who may have been looking for reasons to work with you throughout the year. Now, as you're going to see later in the class, this extra effort and those missed opportunities don't just negatively impact your practice. They actually create ripple effects that can negatively impact your life. But there is good news, because when you align your practice with the seasons of human nature, you can add to the power of your creative potential, because you're working in partnership with the creative forces of the universe. And when you do that, what you're working on feels easier. Things tend to fall into place faster. So fast, in fact, that it can sometimes feel like a miracle. And you're going to hear a bit more on this later in the class, on what to do when that happens, so that you can actually guarantee even more miracles occur for you. Okay. So now you're going to learn how to step into that partnership today using the 4-step ease method of manifesting your most inspired desires. And the first step, which represents the E in ease, is to empty your mind. Now, if that immediately brings up painful images of trying to meditate yourself into oblivion, I want you to give yourself a break here. Let me just go back one. Nope, that's right. Give yourself a break, because clearing your mind in order to manifest what you want most is not about banishing every little thought in your head, right? It's really about emptying your mind of guilt and shame and all those annoying voices that give you every last reason why you can't do something, or you won't do something, or you shouldn't do something. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is critical, because knowing what steps to take to grow your practice is actually the least important part of actually taking those steps, because it's not the how-to that holds you back. It's that spider web of negative voices and guilt that we all carry around in our unconscious mind that disempowers us. And that's why you might set the best of intentions, but that never seem to get around to actually accomplishing them. What I want you to know here is this is not your fault. It is simply the way we human beings are wired. You see, at its core, our brain is obsessed with survival. So along the way, it learned how to weave together those voices to keep us safe. And the truth is, it did that with the best of intentions. It's just that as we grew up and became more capable of navigating the world, those voices didn't grow up with us. So it is critical that you learn how to dissolve those underlying blocks. Otherwise, everything else you do to set goals and reach them will be a waste of time and energy. And that is why we start the ease process by emptying the mind, freeing you from those past limitations, and re-empowering your intention-setting process with fresh energy. So with this method, emptying the mind consists of two particular parts. And as you see there on your screen, the first part is to establish your foundation of freedom conditions. So you've heard those voices before, right? They're the ones in your head that are saying things like, you can't do that, and who do you think you are, and you'll fail at this, and what will people think? And then, of course, the biggie in business, who would ever pay for that, right? So here's what I want you to know about those voices. They each had a positive intention for you, even if they didn't sound or feel very good. They actually came into our lives when we were very young to keep us safe, to force us to maintain the status quo because it was predictable and it didn't rock the boat, right? So today we're going to begin unwinding this old pattern by asking ourselves this question. What would have to be true for you to feel free to pursue a big goal in your practice that reflects your deepest desires? Now, we don't have time to go deep into the science of why this works the way it does. Instead, we're going to be really practical today, and we're going to use this process in a way that, for most people, calms those old negative voices, and sometimes it even makes them go away. And you're going to do that by writing out a list of what I call your freedom conditions. Now, those are all the things that would need to be true for you to have no anxiety about setting a big goal to grow your practice. And here's how you're going to do that. You're going to write each freedom condition as in a complete sentence that, if it were true, would help make it easy for you to reach those goals. Now, when you write these down, I don't want you to worry about whether they're currently true. You're just going to take note of everything that, if it were true, would make it easy for you to reach your biggest goals. And in a few minutes, I'm going to share some examples with you. But first, I want to give you just a few more guidelines. You want to write each condition in the present tense, as if it's happening right now. And you also want to write it in the positive. That means you don't want to say what you don't have. Instead, you want to say what you do have as if you already have it. So, for instance, you wouldn't say, I don't want to be sick, or I want to be healthy and safe, or even I'm going to be healthy and safe. Instead, you would simply write, I am healthy and safe. So you see how clear that is? And don't worry about how many freedom conditions you have. Some people have just a few, others have 50 or 60. The key is to just keep writing down each condition until you feel like you've got a sense of internal spaciousness. And don't worry about getting it wrong, right? Those little voices in your head will just keep talking until you've covered all your conditions. Now, to show you what this looks like in living color, I'm going to share some of my own freedom conditions so you can get a feel for them. Now, by all means, if you feel like some of these conditions work for you as well, absolutely jot them down. So, one of my conditions is, well, here are all of my conditions, right? The more I communicate with my inner wisdom, the more clients are attracted to me. I have a great reputation, and my clients and students appreciate me immensely. My work gives me meaning. I'm making a difference in the world, and I feel deeply fulfilled. I feel safe, healthy, and energized when I'm connected to my intuition and on my path of purpose. And let's see, we got a few more here. Channeling my higher purpose is easy, fun, and fully accepted by friends, family members, clients, and students. I am completely safe and comfortable. I have a consistently great relationship with my family, and I easily and consistently earn $100,000 a year or better. Now, if you cringed a little at this last condition and you would rather not include anything about money, I've got a little news for you. If you want more money, what you're really seeking is more freedom. If you want the security that money gives you, what you really want is more freedom. So unless you've got a thing against freedom, I'm going to encourage you to include something that speaks to what you would need financially to feel secure enough to expand your thinking before you set your goals. So for me, the floor is 6 figures, but it may not be that for you. Everyone is different. My only challenge to you is to be willing to be completely honest with yourself. And if you find a negative voice popping up when you write that condition down, you're going to find out how to handle that particular case in just a few minutes. For now, it is time to ask yourself, what would have to be true for me to feel free to pursue a big goal in my practice that reflects my deepest desires? So go ahead and grab your pen. Just jot down a couple of these freedom conditions now as they pop into your mind, knowing you're always going to be able to come back to this today after our class. And don't overthink it. As I like to say, first thought, best thought. So while you write a couple conditions down, I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. All right, so once you complete this step, I'm going to give you a little bonus gift from me to you. These are actually not affirmations, so you do not need to repeat them every day. Instead, all you need to do is review your freedom conditions at the start of each social season and notice if they're still true for you or if new conditions want to be added. Now, in just a few minutes, you're going to find out what and when those social seasons are. But first, let's talk about what to do if you write down as many freedom conditions as you can think of, but you still feel some resistance to setting a big goal, or you get some back talk maybe about the money condition, right? That almost always means there is still a part of you that feels unheard. And in that case, you may want to enter a dialogue with that part to discover exactly what it needs to feel at ease. And this is what is called the parts alignment conversation. And it's based on a process called active imagination that was developed by the great Swiss psychologist Carl Jung. Essentially, you're going to have a written conversation with whatever internal part or voice is popping up for you when you begin feeling that resistance. So your job is to find out what this part needs in order to feel safe for you to set big goals for your practice. So here's how it works. You're simply going to take a piece of paper and write the conversation as it comes to you in your head. So you're going to start by writing your name and then asking a question to determine who that part is. And then you're going to write the name of that part and what it says to you. So you are going to write the entire conversation, both your part and that other part in your head, word for word, just as it comes to you. Don't paraphrase anything. Just write it word for word as you hear it, feel it, or experience it. So there are 5 specific things you're looking for. First, who is this part? You can start by simply calling that part the part that feels resistant to whatever it felt resistant to when you were writing out your freedom conditions. You'll hear about that in just a moment, because I'm going to read you a parts alignment conversation that I had not too long ago. But in the meantime, after you understand who this part is, you're going to want to find out, what does it want to be called? When did it first come into your life? What was happening that it was trying to help you with so that you understand its positive intention? And how does it want to help you now that you're an adult? So as I said, you're simply going to write out both sides of the conversation as you hear it. And I'm going to show you what that sounds like when I did it, all right? So I said, I'd like to speak with the part of me who resists starting work in the morning, even when I've got plenty to do. And immediately I heard a voice say, that would be me. So that's what I wrote down. That would be me. Now I said, great. What's your name? And it said, you can call me unfinished business. And I said, that's funny since this is about not starting. And then unfinished business said, well, if you don't start, you can never finish, right? Then I said, okay, that makes sense. So why is it that you never want to finish? And unfinished business said, because then I can never be judged for doing it wrong. So I said, and who would judge you for doing it wrong? And unfinished business said, anyone and everyone. And I said, I hear you, and yet it would help me in my business to be able to start things. Tell me, when did you first come into my life? Right? So you noticed I asked, who is it? What did it want to be called? And when did it come into my life? Now, unfinished business said when you were 4 years old. And I said, what was happening at that time that you were helping me with? And unfinished business said, very honestly, I was protecting you from the judgment of your mother. She was pretty unhappy with everything you did, whether it was finished or not. And I said, I remember that time now. It was right after my sister was born. And unfinished business said, that's right. Your mom wasn't patient on the best of days, but now with 2 kids and 1 a newborn, she was totally overwhelmed and cranky. And I said, I can see that. So now that I'm an adult and my mom and I have come to terms, is it necessary to protect me from starting projects? And unfinished business said, not really, because I can see that you've learned how to take criticism, even from yourself, a bit better if things don't turn out perfectly. So I said, so is there anything you need from me in order to allow me to move forward easily? And unfinished business said, no, but I have a suggestion. Read the 5-second rule. As an aside, that is a great book by Mel Robbins. But it said, read the 5-second rule and use that to get started. That'll help you break out of the nervous system habit of stalling at the beginning of your day, and it'll help you rewire your brain for a better future. Now I said, would you like to help me read the book to get me started? And unfinished business said, absolutely. Let's start today at lunch. And I said, great. Looking forward to it. One last question. Would you like to change your name? And unfinished business replied immediately, yes, to finished business. I'm going to be helping you with that all the way. And that was the end of the conversation. So notice I started by addressing the part, again, as the part of me who resists starting work in the morning, even when I've got plenty to do, because that's the only way I knew it, that sense of resistance, right? So from there, again, I found out what it wanted to be called when it first came into my life, and incidentally, I had no memory of that experience when I was 4 years old until the moment it came up in that conversation. And then it's like my whole body knew the truth of it. That is how powerful these dialogues can be. So I asked it if it needed anything from me to move forward, and finally I enlisted its help in a more productive way. And just on a whim, I asked if it wanted to change its name to reflect its new role in my life. I cannot tell you how much more helpful it has been to have finished business on my side than it was having unfinished business. I routinely dive in and get my work done faster and more efficiently every single day. And that is the same kind of transformation that gets to happen for you when you establish your foundation of freedom conditions. Now, speaking of finishing unfinished business, that actually brings us to part 2 of emptying your mind, which is to finish any unfinished business. Now, this is important because if there are things you committed to doing in your practice that you never completed, those things are going to just hang out in your consciousness and clutter it with guilt, right? So we want to clean that up, and here's how. I want you to look back over the last 4 months and jot down a list of everything that still needs to be completed. But, and this is a big but, before you start scrambling to figure out how to finish them, I want you to ask yourself two particular questions and be brutally honest with yourself. The first question is this mine to do? So notice if it really is something that is yours to do or if it's better left to someone else. And it's okay if you thought you were the one to do it at one point and you're going to change your mind now. That is perfectly legitimate. Now, if you do find it's yours, then ask yourself, is this still important? So if either one of those questions is a no, I want you to give yourself permission to let this go. It is totally possible that your life or the circumstances have changed to the point that you shouldn't take this on, whatever it was. And if that's the case, give yourself a high five for realizing it before you spend valuable time on something that isn't necessary. Now, if the answer to both of these questions is a yes, I want you to chunk the project down into tiny steps by asking yourself this question. What is the first step of that? Just the first step. So for instance, if you need to get your finances in order, the first step might be as simple as find the checkbook, right? Now once you've got the first step, then ask yourself, once that's done, what's the next step? And then follow those breadcrumbs. Continue to give your inner wisdom the opportunity to point you to the next step. That is the key to staying in action and out of overwhelm. All right, so now you have walked through step one of the ease method of manifesting your most inspired desires, which is to empty your mind. So by this point, you should have the internal freedom and spaciousness to do some big-time dreaming with step two, which is to activate your inspired desire. And clearly that's the A in the ease method, right? Now, the truth is we all have desires pretty much every hour. The problem is not all desires are created equal because we each have a combination of what I call inspired desires and reactive desires. So let's talk about that word inspired. So as Dr. Wayne Dyer said, when we break it apart, we find two words, in and spirit. Inspired literally means in spirit. And when you're inspired by something, it means you are living in line with your spirit. So inspired desires are actually triggered by our spirit, our holy true self. And they're designed to bring us further down our path of purpose. Now, I want to compare that to our reactive desires. Those are the ones that come from our subconscious need to be liked, or to be loved, or to be appreciated or approved of, right? The key to re-empowering your practice in your life is to pursue goals and desire that truly lead us to the future we most want to live from the spiritual point of view. So Hank Wesselman, an American anthropologist, put this well in an interview I heard recently in which he talked about accidentally stumbling into the field of shamanism. He said, my scientific mind didn't know what to make of it. I had climbed to the top of my profession. I was a respected scientist. Yet the feeling I had was that I had climbed the wrong ladder, and that, in fact, the ladder I wanted to climb was leaning against a different house entirely. We want to make sure that the ladder you're climbing is on the right house, right? It actually gets you to the future you want to live. Now, in just a few minutes, you're going to learn how to tell the difference between an inspired desire and a reactive desire. But first, I want to talk about the nature of desire itself because it's gotten a bad rap, especially in our healing community where we tend to believe that we should only want for other people. Because as you're going to soon hear, it's not only natural to want more, it is a requirement. But first, it has to start with your willingness to receive, because the biggest underlying block that holds you back from getting what you want is believing that it's not right to want more or that it's not spiritual to want more. But as you're about to learn, wanting is the most natural instinct in both the physical and the spiritual world. Now, you've probably learned about or at least heard about the universal laws, right? So just like there are principles that govern our physical reality, like the law of gravity, there are also principles or laws that govern consciousness. I want to call your attention, though, today to one hidden law that doesn't get a lot of press. Yet, ironically, it's the one that actually frees you deeply to fulfill your most inspired desires. I've seen it expressed eloquently through the work of Wallace Wattles. He was a New Thought author of the late 19th and early 20th century. And he was known for books like The Science of Getting Rich and The Science of Being Great and The Science of Being Well. And here's what he had to say about what he called the law of more life. Now, as we go through this, I want you to really take this in. Before I start, I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. All right, so just take this in. Wallace Wattles said, everything you see on earth is made from one original substance out of which all things proceed. New forms are constantly being made and older ones are dissolving, but all are shapes assumed by this formless stuff or original substance. And there is no limit to the supply of original substance. The universe is made out of it, but it was not all used in making the universe. Nature is an inexhaustible storehouse for riches. The supply will never run short. The formless stuff is intelligent. It is stuff which thinks. It is alive, and it is always impelled toward one thing, and that is more life. It is a natural and inherent impulse of life to seek to live more. It is the nature of intelligence to enlarge itself and of consciousness to seek to extend its boundaries and find fuller expression. The universe is a great living presence, always moving inherently toward more life and fuller functioning. And all of nature, including us humans, is formed for the advancement of life. Pretty powerful stuff, right? So just think about that. The entire universe is expanding every single moment, and we are meant to expand with it. And that is why it's not only natural for you to want more, it's just as natural for you to receive more. So, do you want to expand your practice so you're healing more people and making a big contribution to humanity? Good. Do you want to experience the freedom and ease of having a rich, abundant flow of joy and health and prosperity? Good. Do you want to inspire people around the world to love themselves and each other? Good. Do you want the security and the freedom to roam the world visiting sacred places? Good. Do you want a loving relationship or partnership? Good. Here's what I want you to know. When you're tapping into the natural flow of expansion, the law of more life, it's all good. So I want you to give yourself permission to dream big, right? So let's talk about how to distinguish now between an inspired desire and a reactive desire. So once you've taken the first step of the ease method and if you emptied your mind of any guilt or negativity that might have held you back, I want you to consider this. If you could wave a magic wand and get what you really want in your practice in the coming 12 months, what would that be? So would you like to double your client base or maybe even double your income? Would you like to switch from working one-on-one to working one-to-many so you can empower and help more people at one time? Or maybe you want to learn how to do distance healing so you can work with people all over the world. Or perhaps, like some of my clients, you want to lead destination retreats in exotic locales like Costa Rica or Bali or Mexico. Whatever your secret desire is, this is your chance to give voice to it. And I want you to shoot for the moon because even if you miss, you're going to land among the stars. So what is that big, audacious goal you secretly have for your practice? If you know what it is, I want you to go ahead and jot that down now. I'm just going to take a moment as you do. Now, once you've jotted it down, whether now or after this class, there's a simple way to test it out to make sure that it is an inspired desire and not a reactive one, so that you make sure the ladder you're climbing is up the correct house. You don't want it to be someone else's house, someone else's idea of what they wanted for you. You want it to be up to the roof of your house. And we do this through what I call the desire alignment self-check. So you're going to stand up and you're going to place your legs about hip width apart and just allow yourself to feel nice and balanced and on both of your feet. Then you're going to soften your knees just a bit and imagine your feet sinking even deeper into the ground so you're held there nice and secure. Now, once you feel that, I want you to take a few cleansing breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Then soften your gaze and allow your consciousness to drop down into and around your body. This is the desire alignment position. Now, once you are in this position, I want you to ask yourself 3 specific questions. And as you do, I want you to notice what you feel in your body and where you feel it. So the first question is, why is this important to me? As you ask the question, notice how your body responds. Notice if the sensation you feel is expansive or contractive. A desire born from inspiration will feel in some way expansive or pleasurable or grounded. It could feel big and juicy, like the heady feeling of falling in love, or it can feel quiet, like the simple state of peace you feel when you know that something is true. On the other hand, a desire born from a reaction will in some way feel contractive. So you may feel it as a tightening in your gut, or a hard ball in the pit of your stomach, or a tightening in your throat. So whatever your body's signals are for expansion and contraction, you're going to get to know them now in this desire alignment position. Because as you'll hear later on in this class, even when your head tells you one thing, your body will tell you the truth. And the more you practice that, the better you're going to get at instantly determining what that truth is. So once you've answered the first question, why is this important to me? Then you're going to ask, who will I get to be? So as human beings, we all have different roles we play and different identities that we try to live up to. Yet underneath that human being is an eternal being that is waiting for greater expression. And as you step into the identity of who you truly are, your creative power is unlimited. And who you get to be as a result is nothing less than magical. So notice, once you've manifested that secret desire of yours in your imagination, who will you get to be in the world as a result of that? And just allow those thoughts to come to you and really feel the power of it. Really own this. Now, if you don't feel a sense of expansion here, notice if you feel some contraction, because this may be a signal that you're still actually working with a reactive desire instead of an inspired one. But if you do feel an expanded sense of self, then ask yourself the third question, which is, how will I get to feel? So when you have successfully reached that goal of yours, how do you imagine you're going to feel? Maybe you'll feel empowered or uplifted or joyful or peaceful, right? But at this point, we're also looking for something a little different, because the truth is, no matter how expansive you know you're going to feel, you will likely also notice a bit of discomfort here, even a little fear. And I want you to know that's perfectly normal, because here's a little secret. Your most inspired desires should freak you out a bit, because they should represent you entering a new territory that you've never been in before, a totally new paradigm. So you'll almost always have a little bit of fear with that. And that's okay. As long as the predominant feeling is in some way expansive, you can still trust that you're working with an inspired desire. So at this point, now that you've done your inspired desire self-check, notice if you still feel in alignment with what you said you wanted to manifest. If you don't, go back and add to your foundation of freedom conditions, and then choose a new inspired desire. Chances are what you chose wasn't big enough or meaningful enough on a deep soul level to pull you forward. But if the answer is yes, good on you. You're now ready to activate your inspired desire. Because otherwise, even if you know what you want and who you're going to get to be in the world and how you're going to get to feel, there's still a pretty good chance it won't manifest for you. So you activate it by following your ripples of impact. You see, because you're in the healing arts, your practice is an important part of who you are as a person, and it is intimately connected to every other part of your life. You know, some people can go to a job that they're not crazy about, that they dislike, but they think, you know, that's just work. That's why it's called work. I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life. But that is not good enough for you. You want your life to be an entire reflection of who you are in service at your core. So we want to follow the ripples of impact that your practice goals have on the rest of your life, because that's when you tend to give yourself internal permission to go for it, because you see in black and white how it empowers not just your business, but every part of who you are in the world. So here's what I want you to do. Once you've chosen the inspired desire you feel really motivated to pursue in your practice, imagine yourself in a scene that would indicate you have already accomplished it. So for instance, if you want to double your client base, maybe you are flipping through a calendar that's booked solid 3 months out. Just picture that. Or if you want to work one-to-many, maybe you can envision yourself leading a workshop full of eager faces. Or if you want to lead destination retreats, maybe you picture yourself doing cranial work with clients in a pool in Mexico overlooking the ocean, as some of my clients have. Now, if you're someone who doesn't visualize easy, I want you just to get a sense of this result in your mind or body. So you may hear something instead of see something. You may feel something. You may smell something. So just go with whatever way works best for you. Now, once you've got an idea of this end result in your mind, I want you to ask this question. When I'm enjoying those results, how will that impact my money? Now again, money is not the most important thing in the world, but the truth is this. In some way, shape, or form, it touches just about everything that is, from your clients to your family to your freedom. So give yourself permission to notice how fulfilling this desire will have, or how you're fulfilling this desire will have a positive impact on your money. So if you're working with more people or in deeper ways with your clients, you're probably going to be earning a much healthier income, right? So maybe you're able to pay down your debt or pay it off completely. Or maybe you're able to save more for retirement or give more to your favorite charities. Or maybe you finally get to spoil your kids and your grandkids in the way you've always wanted to, right? Whatever way is most important to you, just notice how fulfilling your desire impacts your relationship with money. And then notice how you will get to feel. So you might feel overjoyed at being able to be so generous with the people you love. Or you may feel a deep sense of security when you're funding your retirement account or you've paid off your debt. Or you may simply feel a sense of satisfaction and confidence knowing you don't have to worry about money the way you once did, right? So whatever feelings show up for you, just notice. And make note of this. Jot this down in your journal, right? There's nothing like seeing this in black and white to recognize the ripples of impact. But once you ask yourself this question about money, then I want you to ask yourself this. When I'm enjoying those results, how will that impact my family and relationships, and how will I get to feel? So maybe you'll feel secure enough in your earning that you start to take more time off for family dinners, so you feel competent and confident as a parent, right? Or maybe you'll be able to plan exotic vacations with someone special so you feel relaxed and renewed and romantic. Again, whatever is impactful for you, just notice those ripples of impact here and how you'll get to feel as a result. And take your time here. Jot it all down. But when you're complete here, then I want you to ask yourself this question. When I'm enjoying those results, how will that impact my community and the world? And how will I get to feel? An inspired desire will always, in some way, shape, or form, empower you to contribute to your community and to the world in a positive way, even if it's just indirectly, through the joy or the happiness you're emanating. So give yourself permission to notice how those positive changes in your money and in your family and relationships create these ripple effects in your community and the world. And again, write them down so you see them in black and white. All right. Now you have one final step to take to activate your inspired desire. And it is deceptively simple, but you cannot skip it. And that is that you actually have to make the decision to fulfill your inspired desire. Decision is an act of creation. Until you make a decision, a whole range of possibilities remains, but they stay just that, possibilities, until you actually commit to going for it, to moving forward, to fulfilling what you want most. And that's where the real fun begins, because as you have probably heard, at the moment of commitment, the universe conspires to assist you. All kinds of wondrous things get to happen for you when you make a decision. And we're going to talk more about that when we get to step 4 of the EASE method of manifesting your most inspired desires. For now, I want you to give yourself a big hug because you've just completed step 2, right? Which is to empty your mind. So by now, you should feel pretty excited about the big goal that you've set for yourself because you can see in vivid color how it's going to improve every other aspect of your life. But having a big goal also means you usually have a variety of strategies that will help you reach that goal, to help you manifest that outcome. And the easiest way to choose which path to follow is by taking step 3. So you've emptied your mind, you've activated your inspired desire. I might have misspoken there. Step 3 is to step into the yes. So before I explain to you what that is, I want to talk about those seasons of human nature that are embedded in our collective unconscious, because they each represent a window of opportunity that is ripe for different kinds of strategies to help you reach your overall goal. Now, those strategies may come in the form of different kinds of packages or promotions that you might put together for your services, or they might be in the form of raising your rates or even changing your hours, right? But as you're going to see, there are certain times of year that are suited for specific types of strategies, because these seasons of human nature, which I call social seasons, represent patterns of behavior that have continued for generations. So it's like we're each wired with an internal alarm clock that is preset to go off at different times of the year, even when we're not thinking about it. And when you understand where those alarm points are, you're able to create plans that grow your practice by meeting people where they're naturally at in their lives, which also means they're also more likely to say yes to whatever it is that you're inviting them to. So there are 3 separate and distinct social seasons in North America. Now, if you live on a different continent, just notice where these seasons may reflect your own or where they may be slightly different, and make note of that. So the first season is what I call New Year, New You. It extends from January through April. And the key word here is identity. So this is a natural time of renewal. This is when people naturally check in with themselves and ask themselves, who am I now? And who do I want to become? Which makes January one of the 2 best months of the year to roll out new packages and programs, especially if they lead to results that boost your client's sense of self-worth. So remember earlier we talked about the creative power of your identity, who you get to be in the world? This is the perfect time of year to bundle your services into packages and programs that give people a new sense of identity that reflects their true value and worth. So this is why we so often hear about setting weight loss goals at the start of a new year. But there are really all kinds of goals people set for themselves at this time of year that relates to their sense of identity. So as you're considering what you may choose as a strategy to grow your practice in the new year, ask yourself, how can I package up my services in a way that makes people feel really good about themselves? So you might have a fit and healthy package, or a prime athlete package, or even, get this, a bold in business package, right? They can all include a lot of the same services and modalities, but the aim is speaking to an outcome that is the higher level identity that a client may want for themselves. Now, here's another biggie for this particular social season. January also happens to be one of the 2 best months of the year to raise your rates. Why? Because we're naturally conditioned for prices to increase year after year. So when you choose this time of year to do it, your clients are less likely to be surprised or even take it personally. So in the new year, consider practice-building strategies that are well suited, as I said, to boost your client's sense of identity and sense of self-worth. And as we talked about, or we'll talk about in a moment, it also has to be something that contributes to your inspired desire, right? But first I want to tell you a bit about the two other social seasons, the seasons of human nature. The first is season 2. This is what I call spring into summer. It extends from May through August, and the key word here is flexibility. So for most people, time gets a little more complex over the summer because if they have a family, they're naturally trying to figure out how to juggle work with camp and other creative options. Or they're taking a summer vacation and they're trying to figure out how to cram everything they do in before they leave and when they get back, right? So think about how you can be a little more flexible in your practice to make life easier for your clients over the summer. And get creative here. You know, it might be a good time to, for instance, collaborate with other therapists so you can treat family members at the same time, right? Or maybe you can arrange certain days for child care at the office while mom or dad is getting a session. Depending on your modality, this is also a good time to create packages that could make school easier for kids when they start in the fall. So if you do cranial work, this is a great focus for the summer, helping kids get started, get ready for the fall, and get their learning style set, and be open to integrating the learning that's coming their way, right? So the key is to stay in touch with how you can be more flexible over the summer and make life easier for your clients, which brings us finally to the third social season. Now, this is what I call fall into the holidays. It extends from September through December, and the key word here is generosity. So if you've ever had kids, you know what it feels like when you finally get to drop them off at school after a long, hot summer, right? It is time to party. And that is why this is a time when people naturally want to give, but first to themselves, then to others. So you may think fall into the holidays has to do with November and December, the holidays. Yes, that's true. But September and October, they want to spoil themselves. Now, one of my clients, for instance, promotes a Mother's Day special every September because she knows that's the time of year moms naturally want some me time. Now, September also happens to be the other best month to roll out new packages and programs. So consider bundling services together that allow people to indulge a bit and to spoil themselves. Makes it a great time for session add-ons, like a hand-selected essential oil with every introductory package, for instance. Little gifts like that go a long way, both for someone spoiling themselves and with the holidays when you want to spoil them and they want to spoil others. So what's more, September is also one of the 2 best months of the year to raise your rates. Again, because most of us spent year after year growing up, starting a new school year in the fall. We subconsciously related to things that are fresh and new, which means new higher rates seem to fit at this particular time of year. So if you didn't raise your rates in the new year, I want you to consider doing that in September. All right? So to quickly recap, the 3 seasons of human nature follow the new year, school year axis. So again, the new year, new you from January through April, the theme, the keyword is identity. Spring into summer, May through August, the keyword and the theme is flexibility. And fall into the holidays, September through December. The theme and the keyword is generosity. Now, no matter what month it is, and no matter how much or how little you've accomplished toward reaching your inspired desire, there is always a new social season with fresh opportunities coming up in 4 months or less. So choose 1 or 2 strategies that fit the season and help fulfill your inspired desire. And an easy and fun and intuitive way to do this is through a simple process I call Where is the Yes? And here's how it works. You're going to set a timer for 3 minutes and then call to mind the theme of the next social season. Is it identity? Is it flexibility? Or is it generosity? And I want you to feel the energy of that theme in your body. And then start the timer and ask yourself this one simple question. Where is the yes? Where is the yes? And then just jot down each thought that pops into your head, no matter how strange it might sound. And every time your thoughts begin to slow down, ask again, where is the yes? Where is the yes? And then just keep writing until the timer goes off. Now, as you're making notes, know that there is no wrong answer. Don't edit yourself as you go through this process. Simply write down everything you receive. You are posing a very particular question, worded in a particular way, to your subconscious mind. And this process is actually putting you into the creative flow to see what you receive. So you may come up with ideas to promote your practice that you've thought of before but just didn't pursue, or you may come up with crazy things that you never even thought of. Either way, once you've got some ideas, you're going to want to choose one that seems to feel like a good step to you. And then you're going to test it out by standing in the desire alignment position. And you're going to ask what I call these 2 green light questions. First, will this take me closer to my inspired desire? Now, if the answer is yes, then you're going to ask question no, or then question 2. Does this feel like a natural fit for the next social season? Now, if you've got another yes, bingo, you've got your next step. But if either answer is no, I want you to focus on your inspired desire again. Remind yourself why it is important to you. Remind yourself who you're going to get to be in your life and practice and how you're going to get to feel. And then ask yourself this very important question. Did I make the decision to have it? Remember how I said this part, decision, was critical and that you can't skip it? I want you to be brutally honest with yourself here, right? So ask yourself, did I make the decision to have it? If you realize you didn't fully commit, then I want you to go back to your foundation of freedom conditions and see if there's a part of you that needs a parts alignment conversation. Because if you really have this inspiration, this desire, this goal that lights you up, but you can't find it in yourself to say, yes, I am going for that, then I can almost always guarantee that there's a part of you that is still out of alignment. So I want you to go back and have a parts alignment conversation, and then go through the process to make the decision to have your inspired desire, to go for it, and then step into the yes again, right? Set your timer for 3 minutes and go through the exercise again. So once you've chosen a strategy that's going to help you get to your inspired desire, then you want to chunk it down. And again, you're going to do that by asking, what's the first step of that? So again, going back to the idea of getting my finances in order, right? The first step could be find my checkbook. The first step could be complete my invoices. When you decide that first step, I want you to make it date specific. Decide when it will be complete. Now, in my experience, you can do this and take those steps and get to the results you want. But there are still 2 more things that you can do to actually guarantee you're going to take that step. And they're both a bit unconventional. But as I've discovered in my own business, they seem to supercharge your ability to get things done. Now, the first is one I learned from Dan and Chip Heath. They are the best-selling authors of several books, including Switch, How to Change Things When Change is Hard. And they say that when setting goals, your present self may need to outsmart your future self to help you cross the finish line. And here's how they recommend you do this. Once you know what steps you need to take to reach your goals, visualize where you're going to be when you take them. So let's say you want to freshen up your website in time for the new year. Imagine exactly where you're going to sit down to craft your message. So in essence, what you're doing is enlisting your environment to help you remember to do that. So let's say you decided to do your work on your website at your dining room table, right? The next time you stroll by it, your brain is going to nudge you and say, let's get to work. So essentially, you're tricking your present self into supporting your future self, which leads to the pleasure of actually fulfilling your inspired desire. Now, once you know where you're going to do the work, this next step is not to put it on a to-do list, right? Do you ever notice how your to-do list just gets longer and longer and longer, and those things never seem to get done, and instead you try to ignore them and turn the pages like I used to do, right? Instead, what you want to do is actually block off the time in your calendar to do it. So in the same way you block off an hour or 90 minutes for a client, you want to block off time to get that one step done and put it on your calendar, block it off, treat that task just as you would a client that you are delighted to make time for. Because when you support yourself to achieve your goals in this way, you actually give yourself the time and space in the long run to support more clients. And ultimately, that's when you're living up to your greatest potential and your highest purpose, right? So we're almost to step 4 of the EASE method, and you're going to hear a very personal story from me soon about how miraculously this step works. But as a reminder, I just want to remind you to plan on reviewing your goals 3 times a year before each new social season. And here's a little bonus tip. You can certainly work with the social season that's coming up next, but eventually you're going to feel even more confident when you're actually working 2 seasons ahead. Now, if you want to get there easily, if your calendar is filled with tasks for this coming season's project, see if you can fit in one small action step every day or 2 toward the next season's project. And eventually, you're actually going to catch up with yourself. You're going to find once you get there after a season or 2 that you are now working a good couple seasons ahead. So you know really where you're going in your business. You have the confidence and the security of seeing what's laid out for you and not just trying to, throw things against the wall and see what sticks as you try to grow your practice, right? So take advantage of this opportunity to align your goals with the social seasons and take the steps that fit each season to fulfill them. All right. I'm going to take another quick sip of water before we go to the next step. So at this point, you have walked through 3 steps of the EASE method of manifesting your most inspired desire. You have emptied your mind, you have activated your inspired desire, and you have stepped into the yes. Now, the final step is what guarantees that you start each new season from a higher vantage point than when you began, and that is to embody every blessing. So remember how at the moment of commitment the universe conspires to assist you? You can tell that that is happening by all the synchronicities that tend to unfold around you when you're moving in the right direction. All those crazy coincidences, they actually point to something far more meaningful taking place. The problem is you won't see the full impact of that until you train your brain to look for them. So I mentioned earlier that the brain is wired for safety, right? Because of our prehistoric need to survive, we are naturally biased to focus on the negative. Like it or not, that was another pattern that got passed down in our DNA. Now, the good news is that imagery and emotion sustained over time can rewire your brain to replace a negativity bias with a positive one. So you may have heard this phrase before, neurons that fire together wire together. It was first used in 1949 by Donald Hebb. He was a Canadian neuropsychologist, try to say that 3 times fast, that was known for his work in the field of associative learning. And his axiom reminds us that every experience, every thought, every feeling, and every sensation we have triggers thousands of neurons. And when you repeat an experience over and over, the brain learns to trigger the same neurons every time. Now, by doing this, it creates a new neural network for your thoughts and your feelings to follow. And that's when it also transforms the messages your brain is sending to your body. And here's why this is vital to our conversation today. When you intentionally embody every blessing, every synchronicity along the way to reaching your goals, you're going to get to a point where you're capable of doing things you never could have before because you will literally be wired differently. Now, the process to doing this is incredibly simple, but again, don't underestimate the power of it. Here's how you do it. When you see a synchronicity unfold before you, speak it out loud, even if only to yourself. There's something magical that happens when the truth comes out of your lips and back in through your ears, where it completes a full energetic circuit inside of your body. So I want to tell you a story about how transformational this step is. I actually found out firsthand through an experience I had about 11 years ago when I was going through a divorce. At that point, my husband and I had been married for 22 years, and throughout the whole relationship, we both funneled all of our income into one bank account, and then I was the one who was responsible for paying all of our monthly bills. Now, at the time, at the end of our relationship, my husband was actually making more money than I did, but it didn't matter because everything always went into one pot. And then every month, I would schedule all of our bills to be automatically deducted from that account. Now, that worked so well for us for so many years that even when we decided to go through the divorce, my husband and I both agreed that we were going to continue that way until the divorce was final. And that is exactly what we did, until the day that I came home to a message from my husband. It said, "I've decided to open my own checking account, and I've deposited my money there. I'll still contribute to our joint expenses. Just let me know what they are." Well, that was all well and good, but what he didn't realize was that a number of automatic deductions were just about to hit our account. We had a mortgage, we had 2 car payments, and we needed all of our income combined to cover all of our expenses. In that moment, I felt like I had been punched in the gut and the ground had been pulled out from underneath me all at the same time, because I knew what kind of financial trauma this was going to create for our entire family. Now, even though our divorce had been amicable up until then, we still weren't communicating really any better than we had during our marriage. So when I confronted him sweetly in all of my panic, my husband instantly shut down. And as much as I asked him to consider what this was going to do to our finances and to our credit, and as much as I begged him to honor our original agreement, he wasn't budging. So I finally gave up and walked away. I honestly still did not know what to do when I was sick to my stomach, but I walked away. And just then, as I was walking literally from the living room into the hallway, all of a sudden I felt this odd, unusual sensation filling up my body, and it stopped me in my tracks. It felt like a million bubbles of light that started in my pelvis, and then it slowly moved into my solar plexus. And when it hit my chest, I realized it was the sensation of pure and utter joy. And as this sensation of joy continued to move up through my body, I looked at the ceiling and I even said out loud, "What is this?" And just as that feeling moved past my throat and into my head, a light bulb went on. And that's when I remembered. You see, many years before that, I discovered that I had a specific pattern with what I call found money. So that's the money that drops into your lap unexpectedly, like when a deposit suddenly gets returned from an old bank account you'd forgotten about, or money is left to you in a will from a distant relative you didn't know, right? So starting when I was 19 years old, I would get these unexpected checks, this found money, out of the blue. And as a 19-year-old would, I would get all excited about all the things I was going to do with it, like get some new makeup or new shoes or go on a weekend getaway. But invariably, 2 or 3 days later, I'd get some unexpected bill that was always within $5 of the found money that had dropped into my lap. And this happened on a regular basis, and I will tell you, it regularly made me very sad. Because in my experience, all this money would show up in my life, and suddenly it would disappear. It was like it was being taken from me. Now, finally, one day I was in my mid-20s, and I was in the middle of getting a craniosacral session. And I was telling my therapist about this pattern I have and how upset I was that the money always left me before I could enjoy it. And I will never forget what happened next. She stopped the session, she turned and she looked down at my face, and she said to me, "Shut up." Now, color me surprised, because this is not how I thought that session was going to go, right? So I asked, "What do you mean?" And she said, You are the luckiest person in the world, and you don't even know it. Every single time you have an unexpected bill, you get the money to pay for it. Now, I will tell you, until that moment, I had literally never looked at it that way. But when she told me, everything shifted because I started noticing every time it happened. And here's the important thing. I started speaking it out loud by telling my friends about it every time. So I'd get an unexpected check followed by an unexpected bill, and I'd say to a friend, look at this. I just got this bill for $62, but I just got that check for $65. And here's the important thing. I would always follow that by saying, it's weird, when it comes to money, everything always works out for me. And I said that out loud month after month and year after year. So here I am now, 22 years later, going through this divorce. And I'm standing in my living room as my body is filling up with a palpable sense of indescribable joy. And just as that sensation moves from my head to my crown, I remember again, oh, yes, when it comes to money, everything always works out for me. In that moment, my body remembered the truth, even before my mind did. And it was so phenomenal, I just started laughing. And I went and found my husband. He was hiding in another room at that point. And I said to him, you know what? Everything's going to be okay. This is not a problem. Everything's going to work out fine. I'm not sure how, but I know we're going to find a way to work this out. And here's the really amazing thing. When I said that, he was so disarmed that he immediately went to his computer and on his own, without even telling me, he moved all the money from his new bank account back into our joint account. And it stayed there, all of our money in one pot, until the day our divorce was final. We never bounced a check, we never missed a bill, and our credit actually improved. Now, this is the kind of magic that gets to happen for you when you speak your synchronicities out loud and embody every blessing. It liberates you to manifest your most inspired desire in a ridiculously joyful way. So that actually brings us to the end of our class today. You now have everything you need to re-empower your practice and your life. Now, if you happen to practice craniosacral therapy and you'd like more help with that, I'm going to invite you to check out my free training webinar, the 5 cranial concepts that are blocking you from getting and keeping new clients. And you can find that at craniosacralconfusion.com. 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 And no matter what modalities you practice, you're also going to find plenty of tips and techniques to grow your practice at SharonTransforms.me. SharonTransforms.me. It has been my great pleasure and honor to walk you through this process today, and I look forward to hearing about how you grow your practice to the fullest expression of your spirit.
Sharon, thank you so much for all of the detail that you went through in this class.
You are very welcome, my friend.
Now, I love that you talk about, like you really lead us through a process here. And I think one of the most important pieces, like you started at the beginning, is to finish up old business, because that really frees space in our minds. And and as you were talking about it, I think it really frees space in our spirits as well, that it opens us up to all of these possibilities.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. You know how I talked about that to-do list that was so long, it was many pages, and you finally just start turning the page? You know, unfinished business, we may think that we've just ignored it. We may think that we've just turned the page. But the truth is, it is still in our consciousness, right? And so it is still cluttering up our mind and our hearts and our spirit. You're exactly right. So that's why it's important to go back and either double check, see if it is still yours to do and if it's even important, and if not, be willing to give that up, or choose a step to finish that business and take it. And it doesn't matter almost how long it takes. What matters is that you're actually taking steps. It's the progress that matters. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you talked about, in one part, setting up where you're going to make this action happen so that when you sort of walk past that place or you go to that place, that there is a signal there. And I love that idea because it creates not only that conscious effort, but that unconscious or subconscious, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, subconscious effort by your whole being to push yourself forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you're saying there because it's not just that you're like planting a Jewish mother in that space who's going to remind you every time you pass to come sit down and do your work, but it's also envisioning the work being done. And here's another little bonus tip that I didn't mention that I really like. As you're visualizing where you're going to take this step, I also want you to imagine once the step is complete, who you're going to call to celebrate with. So just picture yourself picking up the phone, calling your friend Melanie Hayden, and saying, I did it. I completed it. I feel so relieved. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see what happens next. That in and of itself gives us more inspiration to make this a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Totally agree with that and love that idea because that celebration piece is what is that feeling piece. This is how it feels to actually do something that I'm inspired to do, that I want to do, that is moving me forward, that I set that intention or I set that goal and look at I've accomplished it and I've achieved it. And celebrating that makes us, I think even more driven forward again to get that next piece going and get that next piece going.
Absolutely. And that's why that feeling, you're right, is critical to this. And this is why you actually activate your inspired desire by not only seeing how it's going to impact all these other areas of your life, and you can choose more areas than what I got there. How does it impact my health and well-being? And how will I get to feel? So notice how will I get to feel is always a part of this because that is what sends those signals out to the world like a honing signal that those synchronicities then come back to you on, right? You are sending a message to the universe, not just through your thoughts, but through your feelings. And the universe will conspire to assist you.
Yeah, and no matter what you call the universe, your God, whatever your beliefs are, I think at the very, very least, you get to feel that personally. You get to see that your actions that you're moving towards are actually creating a better life for you because I think it opens up your awareness to see things that you may not have seen, to appreciate things that you may not have appreciated.
Yeah, you just hit on something really important. I said earlier we don't really have time to go into the science of why this happens, but it really happens because of the way our bodies are wired. It's our reticular alarm system, or you might call it the reticular activating system, that actually filters out or draws our attention to things in our surroundings that match our inner experience. So this is why if you buy a yellow VW Bug, suddenly it looks like everyone on the road is driving one, right? Now, that may seem like one of those synchronicities, those coincidences, but it's happening because your brain is now drawing your attention to it. So, there really is a science for how this works. The key here is that you're opening up your awareness to move down the path that is going to get you to your biggest goals as easily and effortlessly and joyfully with as much fun as possible.
I love all of those pieces of the puzzle too, because
I know you do.
of course,
all
if you're
about the
having
cellular joy, right?
Exactly, yes. And if you're having fun and doing what you love and you're feeling good about that, that all transfers to the people that we're working with. No matter what setting we're working in, it transfers to everybody around us. And then people want to be around you more. And because you're giving them something and you're helping them in some way. So yeah, it's just such a great trickle-down effect. And as soon as we shift our mindset towards what's really working and what do I want and what is my desire? And I love how you touched on desire as being inspired desire or reactive desire. That is something to be really, really aware of. And then it allows you to think like, oh, is this really what I want, or is this what somebody told me I should want, or what somebody told me that I should feel like or be like?
And that's why that desire alignment position is so important. You don't assume that what you think you want is really what you want, because often we are driven to want those things because someone, when we were younger, told us to want them, or we're trying to prove someone wrong, right? And those initial impulses have gotten buried in our unconscious, in our subconscious. We may not even be aware of them. So when we say we want something, we really have to get grounded and feel into it. And practice that desire alignment position with things that you know inspire you and things that don't. And you will begin to subtly feel the different signals your body is sending you.
Great. And we are always telling, as practitioners, if we're working with clients, we're always telling them, get in touch with your body. How does that feel? What does that feel like for you? So it's not a stretch that we would take that and apply it to all areas of our life.
Absolutely. You got it, sister.
Just before we go, I just want to talk a little bit about the seasons piece, because I've never sort of heard it in that perspective before, the social seasons, because, as business owners, you always look at what's next and what's coming up, the next month and the next month. And you talk about getting ahead of this, which I think is really, really important. We need to start where we are right now. So whenever you're listening to this, if you're listening to it at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year, you've given us some really great opportunities to target the changes that we want to create and specific steps to go through those processes. So thank you for sharing that seasons piece. I think it allows us to find a way to take action right away and a way to move to something to move towards right away.
Right. All too often people think that they have to pick a project or two or a big thing at the beginning of the year, and it's going to take 12 months, and then somewhere along the line they lose the threads of it, and they almost think they have to wait another year, wait a few more months before they get that fresh energy again, when in fact these cycles are happening in our consciousness several significant times of the year. So yeah, it's just, again, taking advantage of what is naturally happening in humankind to create things that are going to meet them where they are, and so that they're more likely to say yes to what you're doing than say no.
Mm-hmm. That totally makes sense. And then just that last piece that I want to go back to. It was almost the beginning of the class, and that's that parts alignment conversation. And your sample that you gave and walked us through, that sounds to me like a coaching session would be, like something that you would, as a business coach or as a lifestyle coach, would take people through. Is that really what we're doing through that process, is really coaching ourselves to really discover, like, what is that part of me, that message that I didn't even know where it came from, like you gave in your great example. So that seems to me like a really great coaching session that we can put ourselves through.
Absolutely. It is actually a coaching technique. Like I said, it's based on active imagination from Carl Jung, but it was refined in the field into a modality called voice dialogue. And this is kind of a takeoff from that. And I brought it here because this is something that you can use yourself without anyone needing to be there and do exactly what you said. Coach yourself through this breakthrough. And you know you've come to a breakthrough when that voice quiets down its negativity and feels like it's going in the same direction as you. You know, notice at the end of that conversation, this part of me was working with me now to get things done. And by the way, it's still working with me on a daily basis to get things done. So it is a beautiful coaching technique for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, Sharon, do you have anything else that you want to add just before we go?
Just as always, I'm thrilled to be here. This is such a beautiful community, and I am just always inspired to support you here.
Well, thank you, and you always do. You inspire us as well, and you really, again, it's part inspiration and part like, here's some really practical things, and this is how you can go through these parts and pieces to have the life that you desire. And it's a whole picture. It's not just here's a piece that will help you with, you know, your business. It's like if you work through these things with your business, your entire life and the lives around you will have that ripple effect, and it will be wonderful. So, and like you said, dream big. Like, let's get back to that place where we're dreaming big about what we want.
Yes, I agree. I'm with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Sharon. Really, really appreciate it. And just before we go, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our education partner. Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals provides an extensive array of member benefits and exceptional liability insurance. Visit abmp.com to discover why over 80,000 massage and bodywork professionals have chosen ABMP as their professional association. And thank you so much to our daily sponsors, Massage and Bodywork Magazine, Bon Vital, BioFreeze, and Massage Warehouse.